consistent inefficiencies, and the safety committee has raised concerns about your protocols. I sat across from Bryce Palmer, adjusting my hard hat strap as he flipped through my performance review. Look, I'd been through plenty of these over 25 years, but this felt different. The conference room buzzed under those harsh fluorescent lights, and I could see other supervisors walking past the glass door, probably wondering what kind of trouble I was in. 18 months of busting my tail, and here's what I get: a list of so-called failures that didn't match reality one bit. I'm particularly concerned about the Line 7 modifications. Bryce continued, not even looking up from his paperwork. The implementation showed poor judgment and created unnecessary downtime. My throat went dry. Those Line 7 modifications had bumped our throughput by 15% and saved the company $2,003 million this year alone. Corporate called personally to congratulate our plant. But here's Bryce telling me I screwed up. Please let me finish, he said when I started to speak, holding up his hand like I was some rookie. I have several documented incidents here that need addressing. That's when my phone buzzed. Normally, I'd never check it during a performance review. You just don't do that. But something made me glance at the screen while Bryce shuffled his papers around. Unknown number, don't react. Your boss is recording everything. Be careful what you say. I kept my face blank, looked back up to find Bryce watching me real close. Sorry about that, I said, slipping the phone back in my coverall pocket. My pulse was picking up speed. His company phone was laying face down on the table, which was weird. Bryce always kept that thing clipped to his belt, and his posture looked off, kind of angled like he was hiding something under his jacket. Your coworkers have mentioned concerns about your collaboration during shift changeovers, he went on. Would you care to explain your approach to team coordination? Here we go. Classic fishing expedition, trying to get me to trash my crew. I remembered that text message and chose my words real careful. The guys on my shift work hard. We get the job done right. Bryce's jaw tightened just a little. He shifted in his chair, and I caught a glimpse of something small and black under his jacket. Let's discuss the safety protocol you submitted last month. Several veterans expressed reservations. Another trap: that safety protocol had cut workplace injuries by 30%. Our insurance company was already talking about lower premiums because of our improved record. I think the protocol speaks for itself, I said evenly. 0 incidents since we put it in place. Bryce checked his watch. I need to step out for a moment. Please review these improvement targets while I'm gone. He slid a folder across the table and walked out, closing the door behind him. The room got real quiet. I waited about 10 seconds, then got up and took a look around. Something about that plant behind his chair had been bugging me. There was a reflection where there shouldn't be one. I walked over careful-like and found a small recording device tucked in the leaves, red light blinking steady. My hand went straight to my hard hat strap. Why was this guy secretly recording me, and who sent that warning text? Footsteps in the hallway. I barely made it back to my seat before Bryce came back with fresh coffee. Now, where were we? He asked, settling back down. Ah, yes, your improvement plan. I'll need you to sign this acknowledgement that we've discussed your performance issues. He pushed a document toward me, full of dense text highlighting supposed failures and subpar results. None of it matched what actually happened on the floor. This wasn't just some unfair review. This was paperwork designed to push me out the door. As I stared at that signature line, it hit me like a freight train. I wasn't the first guy he'd done this to, and I wouldn't be the last unless somebody stopped him. My name's Wade Garrison, and up until 18 months ago, I figured 25 years of manufacturing experience meant something. I'd built my reputation through solid work and practical solutions, the kind of stuff that caught Bryce Palmer's attention when he transferred in to modernize our operations. First couple weeks went smooth as butter. Bryce seemed genuinely interested in my ideas for improving efficiency. I'd been running Line 7 for 8 years and knew every bottleneck, every place where we lost time or materials. When he asked for suggestions, I laid out a complete restructuring plan I'd been thinking about for months. The crew welcomed him at first, especially Diana Walsh, who'd been a line supervisor for 12 years. She gave him the full plant tour, explained our safety culture, introduced him to the old-timers who knew every machine's personality like their own family. We're glad to have fresh perspective, she said during that first team meeting. We need new ideas after everything that's happened. What do you mean? I asked. We lost 3 good supervisors in 6 months, experienced people just up and transferred out. Bryce said they couldn't handle the pressure of modern manufacturing, but Diana looked around before lowering her voice. It felt sudden, you know? Like something wasn't right. I should have paid attention to that warning, but I was too focused on proving my Line 7 concept could work. My first big project was implementing the new workflow I'd designed. I worked nights and weekends, mapping every process, timing every operation, calculating potential savings down to the penny. When I presented it to the team, the response was fantastic. "This is exactly what we need," Diana said. Even Troy from quality control spoke up, and that guy hardly said 2 words in meetings. The integration between stations eliminates 3 major bottlenecks. This could be a model for the whole plant. I felt like I'd finally found my place in the new structure, until Bryce stepped in. "It's a start," he said, crossing his arms, "but the approach is elementary. We need more sophisticated thinking." He turned to the team. "Troy, why don't you take point on the technical analysis? Diana, you handle the implementation logistics. Wade, you observe how experienced supervisors approach complex problems." Just like that, I was out of my own project. When the modifications launched 3 weeks later, identical to my original design, the results beat all projections. Corporate sent this congratulatory email about our innovation, praising the leadership team for breakthrough thinking. Bryce sent back a reply accepting full credit, mentioning how he'd guided the team toward a more effective approach than what was initially proposed. I told myself it was just politics, that I needed to understand how things worked at the management level, but here's the thing, a pattern started emerging real quick. My cost-saving initiative for Line 3 got shot down in team meetings as impractical, only to show up in Bryce's presentation to the board a week later as his optimization strategy. My safety protocol that cut injuries by 30% became his revolutionary approach to workplace protection when he pitched it to corporate. Every time I came up with something good, Bryce would find problems with it in front of everyone, then turn around and use my work as his own brilliant idea. When I tried speaking up, he'd cut me off with lectures about team success over individual recognition. That's how we operate in modern manufacturing, Wade. Results matter, not who gets the credit, but here's what really got to me. It wasn't just happening to me. I started noticing Diana, who used to be confident and outspoken, had gotten real hesitant about sharing ideas. Troy barely said anything in meetings anymore. New guy Aaron Lawson came in strong, but within weeks he was second-guessing every decision he made. 2 months in, I found Aaron in the break room staring at his coffee like it held all the answers to life. "I don't understand what I'm doing wrong," he said when he saw me. Yesterday, Bryce called my efficiency analysis substandard. But last week he told the plant director the same analysis showed innovative thinking. "That's just how it is with Bryce," Diana said, walking in and overhearing us. "Your work's good, Aaron. Don't let him mess with your head." That night I couldn't sleep. My wife Sarah was already in bed and I sat in the kitchen going over everything in my mind. Was I imagining things? Had 25 years on the floor made me too set in my ways to handle new management? The next morning I got to the plant early, around 6 a.m. Bryce was already in his office on a video call. He hadn't seen me walk past his door. "The new guy has no clue what he's created," Bryce was saying to someone on the screen, laughing. "The Line 7 modifications will position us perfectly for the efficiency awards. Keep them hungry for validation, and they'll produce twice as much while accepting minimal recognition." I froze right there in the hallway. He was talking about my work, the project he'd criticized publicly before taking to the board as his vision. "The trick," he went on, "is isolation. If they start comparing notes, the game's over. But people hate admitting when they feel inadequate." I backed away real quiet, my mind spinning. This wasn't poor communication or some new management style. This was deliberate manipulation, plain and simple. Over the next few weeks, I watched more carefully. Supervisors who questioned Bryce found their safety records suddenly under scrutiny. Keep your mouth shut and you might get a small raise despite doing excellent work. 3 experienced guys had transferred out before I even got there, worn down by constant criticism. 2 others took demotions, convinced they weren't cut out for supervisory roles anymore. Bryce had built his reputation by stealing other people's ideas while systematically destroying their confidence. Upper management only heard his version of our capabilities, never seeing what was really happening on the floor. I started documenting everything. Saved emails, kept copies of my proposals before Bryce got his hands on them, recorded meetings with everyone's knowledge. I wasn't sure what I'd do with all this evidence, but I knew I needed to protect myself and my family. Then came the announcement about the quarterly board presentation. Each department would showcase their achievements to corporate leadership. Bryce naturally appointed himself to present our operational improvements, planning to take credit for the entire department's transformation under his guidance. As the presentation got closer, the pressure got intense. Bryce became more critical, more demanding. Supervisors worked doubles without any recognition. Aaron ended up transferring to second shift, saying it was for personal reasons after Bryce tore apart some work that had already been implemented successfully. The morning of my performance review, I found an envelope on my workbench. Inside was just a business card with a phone number and the words "former supervisor, call if needed." I didn't have time to think about what that meant before Bryce called me into the conference room for the conversation I started this whole story with, the one where somebody warned me about being recorded. After I signed that improvement plan under pressure, I went back to my station with my head spinning like a washing machine on the fritz. Who sent that text? Why was Bryce secretly recording me? And what was I going to do about it? That business card felt like it was burning a hole in my coverall pocket. During my break, I sat in my truck in the parking lot and dialed the number with shaking hands. I've been waiting for your call. A woman's voice answered right away. My name's Stella Barnes. I was Bryce's assistant supervisor for 2 years before I retired last month, and you're not the first person he's tried to destroy. The phone crackled while I processed what she'd just said. I kept my voice low even though I was alone in my truck. He records people, I asked. That's just one of his tricks, Stella said. Bryce gets people to make negative comments about coworkers or pushes them to admit mistakes so he can use it against them later. I watched him do it dozens of times, but I never had solid proof until now. Until me, you're different. You're documenting things. Diana mentioned you've been keeping records. Stella paused, and because I've been carrying guilt for 18 months, watching good people's careers get destroyed while I stayed quiet, I looked toward the plant where Bryce was probably planning his next move. What's he want from this recording? He needs you to say something damaging about yourself or others. He'll edit it, present it to management as evidence of your bad attitude, build his case for firing you, or make you so miserable you quit believing you're the problem. That's not happening, I said. Good, but be careful, Wade. Bryce doesn't just steal ideas, he destroys people's spirits. I've seen talented supervisors leave manufacturing completely after believing his lies about their abilities. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the plant where I'd worked for 8 years, where I'd planned to work until retirement, where my pension was building up so Sarah and I could maybe take that RV trip we'd been talking about. That afternoon, Stella called back. I found something you need to see, she said. Can you meet after your shift ends? We met at Murphy's Diner about 3 miles from the plant. Stella slid a flash drive across the table along with her coffee. Performance reviews from 6 supervisors who transferred out over the past 2 years, she explained. HR filed them as confidential, but Bryce convinced the director they were just disgruntled employees making excuses. How'd you get these? I asked, not touching the drive yet. I handled personnel filing, kept copies because something felt wrong about the whole situation. She leaned forward. These stories are identical, Wade. Everyone describes watching their confidence get systematically torn down while their best work gets claimed by someone else. My heart started pounding. This could help, but it's still their word against his. That's why I also grabbed project files showing work Bryce took credit for, along with proof of who really developed it. Her eyes stayed steady on mine. Last year's safety improvements, efficiency modifications, cost reductions. 3 clear cases where he shot down ideas publicly, then presented them as his own innovations weeks later. I picked up the flash drive, feeling its weight. Why didn't you come forward before now? He threatened me. Not directly, Bryce is too smart for that. But he made it crystal clear that speaking against him would end my career in this industry. She pushed her coffee aside. Use this however you need to. I'm retired anyway, so he can't touch me now. Back home that evening, Sarah was making dinner while I sat at the kitchen table going through Stella's files until nearly midnight. The evidence was overwhelming. Bryce hadn't just stolen credit. He deliberately sabotaged people's confidence because they posed threats to his advancement. The documentation painted a clear picture of systematic manipulation going back years. The next morning, Diana approached me during shift change looking nervous. We need to talk, she said quietly. After work, break room. When I got there, Troy was waiting along with Casey from process engineering. We know what he's doing to you, Diana said, keeping her voice barely above a whisper because he did it to all of us. Casey locked the door. We stayed quiet too long. Time we fixed that. For the next hour, they shared their experiences. Troy had developed the quality control framework that earned our plant a safety award, accepted by Bryce at the ceremony. Casey had created the workflow optimization that improved our efficiency ratings presented by Bryce as his systematic approach to operations management. Deanna had designed the training program that cut new hire accidents in half minus credited to Bryce's innovative leadership methods. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because you're fighting back, Troy said simply, and we want to help. That night, I barely slept. The quarterly presentation was tomorrow, with corporate executives and our entire management team attending. It would be Bryce's moment of glory unless somebody stopped him. I got to the plant early, watching the conference room fill with executives and department heads. Our operational display stood at the front, ready for Bryce's presentation about manufacturing excellence under his leadership. He worked the room like a politician, shaking hands with corporate people, laughing at just the right moments. Our team huddled nearby, tension visible in everyone's shoulders. Bryce had sent the final presentation deck that morning, a masterpiece of subtle manipulation. Our contributions appeared technically credited, but positioned as minor elements within his overarching strategy. 10 minutes, everyone called the event coordinator. Bryce waved us over. Remember, this showcases our collective achievement under systematic leadership. We rise together. As he turned away, Diana grabbed my arm. You sure about this? I nodded, feeling calmer than I had in weeks. Just be ready. The lights dimmed as Bryce took the front, welcomed by polite applause. The screen behind him lit up with our plant logo. Today, he began, I'm honored to present operational improvements that represent the pinnacle of modern manufacturing leadership, a systematic approach I've implemented over the past 18 months. The first slide appeared, showing our combined results carefully arranged to suggest one unified vision, his vision. While you'll see individual contributions, he continued smoothly. What's remarkable is how these elements form a cohesive strategy, a methodology I've developed through years of operational experience. From my spot in the back, I caught Plant Director Helen Morrison's eye. She smiled approvingly at Bryce, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Bryce clicked to advance his presentation, but instead of his next slide, the screen changed to video footage. Bryce in his office, speaking candidly to someone off camera. The new guy has no clue what he's created. His recorded voice echoed through the silent room. Keep them hungry for validation, and they'll produce twice as much while accepting minimal recognition. You could hear a pin drop. Bryce froze mid-gesture, his face shifting from confusion to horror as he recognized his own words. The video kept playing, showing more clips. Bryce taking credit for Diana's training program in a private meeting with executives. Bryce dismissing Troy's framework publicly before presenting it as his innovation to corporate. Bryce telling Stella to exclude Casey from presentations after using Casey's designs. Bryce lunged toward the control booth, but security blocked his path. This is unauthorized, he shouted. Someone's sabotaging this presentation. Actually, I called out, stepping forward from the back. Everything you're seeing is authorized and legally obtained. These are recordings from official meetings where all parties were notified, communications sent through company channels, and statements made in company facilities. The audience turned as I walked down the center aisle, tablet in hand. What you're witnessing isn't sabotage, I continued, my voice steady. It's documentation. For 18 months, this man has systematically claimed credit for others' innovations while deliberately undermining their confidence and career advancement. Bryce's face twisted with rage. These clips are taken out of context. This is a vindictive attack by an employee facing performance issues. I reached the front and turned to face the crowd. Is it vindictive when 6 different supervisors report identical experiences? Is it out of context when performance reviews contradict actual plant results? Is it one disgruntled employee when an entire department has documentation? The screen shifted to show side-by-side comparisons, original proposals next to Bryce's later presentations. Safety improvements developed by Diana credited to Bryce's leadership. Efficiency gains I designed presented as his systematic methodology. Morrison stood up from her seat. Mr. Palmer, is this accurate? Absolutely not, Bryce stammered. This is coordinated because she interrupted. I'm looking at safety improvements I personally complimented you on last quarter. Improvements you specifically told me were your innovative approach. The room went dead silent. Executives exchanged glances. Department heads whispered among themselves. If I may, I said, addressing Morrison directly. There's something more important than exposing one person's deception. I tapped my tablet and the screen changed again, displaying our team's work with proper attribution. This is the real legacy of our operational improvements. Not one man's vision, but combined expertise that deserves recognition. One by one, Diana, Troy, and Casey stood up. Together, we formed a line across the front of the room, united against Bryce's isolated position at the podium. Security approached as Morrison gestured toward the exit. Bryce's face had gone white, finally understanding what was happening to him. These people were nothing before I shaped them, he shouted desperately. Look at their work before me, mediocre at best. I built their careers. Those words hung in the air like a bad smell, damning in their arrogance. As security escorted Bryce out, conversations erupted throughout the room. Executives approached our team members, examining the properly credited work with fresh appreciation. Management huddled urgently, occasionally glancing our way. The presentation continued without Bryce, transformed into something nobody expected, a celebration of individual contributions within team frameworks. Our crew, for the first time in months, stood behind their work accepting questions without backing down or making excuses. But as the meeting wrapped up, uncertainty hung over everything. We'd exposed Bryce, but what would happen to our jobs? Had we just committed career suicide? Morrison approached our group as people started filing out. "I need all of you in the main conference room tomorrow at 8 a.m., she said simply before walking away. That night, we gathered at O'Malley's, the bar where plant workers had been meeting for 30 years, emotionally drained but unable to go home yet. "What happens tomorrow?" Troy asked, voicing what everyone was thinking. I looked around at these people who'd risked everything to reclaim their worth. "I don't know," I admitted. "But whatever comes next, we face it together." None of us could have predicted what waited in that conference room the next morning. The meeting felt heavy with finality. Our team gathered outside the conference room, exchanging nervous looks, but few words. Whatever happened now, we'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. "No regrets," Diana whispered as Morrison's assistant waved us in. Morrison sat at the head of the table with the plant's COO, HR director, and two people I didn't recognize. "Please sit," Morrison said, pointing to empty chairs. We arranged ourselves along the table, still united despite our anxiety. "Yesterday was unprecedented," she began. "In my 12 years running this plant, I've never witnessed anything like it. Here it comes," I thought. The corporate damage control, protecting the company's reputation over justice. Before we discuss consequences, Morrison continued, "I want to address something directly." She looked each of us in the eye. "I failed you. As plant director, creating an environment where talent thrives is my responsibility. Somehow I allowed a culture where one person could systematically undermine others while advancing through deception. That statement caught me completely off guard. This is Barbara Cross, an independent investigator specializing in workplace ethics. Last night I asked her to examine everything thoroughly. Barbara opened her laptop. The documentation is extensive and damning. Email trails, recorded meetings, comparative project files. They show a clear pattern of credit theft and psychological manipulation spanning 18 months. Morrison nodded grimly. "Legal implications?" The second stranger, a guy in a gray suit, spoke up. "I'm Lawrence Webb, outside counsel. While the company faces potential liability for allowing this situation, the individuals who came forward acted within legal boundaries. Their documentation methods were appropriate and the revelation occurred in a professional context." Morrison turned back to us. "Bryce Palmer's employment has been terminated immediately. His final pay reflects no bonus or performance incentives. Security cleared his office this morning." Relief washed over our side of the table, but Morrison wasn't done. "Removing one person doesn't solve systemic problems," she continued. "Our operational structure needs new leadership, transparent, collaborative, ethical, someone who values individual contribution within team success." My stomach dropped. Restructuring usually meant layoffs. "Diana, your portfolio from the past 5 years is outstanding. Would you consider stepping into operations manager?" Diana's sharp breath was audible. "Yes, absolutely. Good. You'll work directly with me during the transition." Morrison turned to Troy. "Your quality framework has been foundational to our safety record. I want you heading a specialized quality assurance department, reporting to Diana, but with dedicated resources." Troy nodded as Morrison continued assigning roles based on previously unrecognized talents. "Wade, you've been here only 18 months, yet you triggered necessary change. Your operational innovations show excellence, but your leadership in this situation demonstrates something equally valuable: integrity and strategic thinking." She slid a folder across the table. "This is a new position, Plant Operations Director. You'd oversee production efficiency, develop protocols ensuring proper attribution of innovations, and build safeguards against the dynamics that allowed this situation." I opened the folder to find a job description with salary nearly double my current pay. "Why me?" I asked. "I'm the newest guy, least invested in company politics." "That's exactly why you could see what others had normalized," Morrison replied. "Sometimes the clearest perspective comes from fresh eyes willing to speak truth." 6 months later, our plant received corporate recognition for innovative management practices. Industry publications featured our attribution system and collaborative approach as a model for modern manufacturing. Standing before those industry leaders, accepting recognition for the workplace where we'd fought for basic fairness just months earlier, felt surreal. At the celebration dinner afterward, Diana raised her glass. "To Wade, who risked everything for truth." I shook my head. "That's not right. I just couldn't accept what was happening to good people doing honest work." "That's what makes it remarkable," Troy said. "You didn't plan some elaborate scheme. You just refused to participate in your own destruction." The truth is, there was no master plan when I first noticed Bryce's manipulation. No grand strategy for justice, just a fundamental decision. I wouldn't let my work be stolen, I wouldn't accept being made smaller than I was, and I wouldn't stand by while it happened to others. The real victory wasn't watching Bryce get escorted out in disgrace. It was the weeks and months that followed, watching supervisors rediscover their voices, seeing Troy present his quality framework with confidence, hearing Diana defend operational choices without apology. This was about reclaiming what he'd taken, our work, our confidence, our professional identities, about creating systems that made such theft impossible moving forward. If this story hit home for you, remember, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply refuse to participate in our own diminishment. You know your worth. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise, and if you've had to stand up for yourself at work, share your experience. You never know who might draw strength from your story, because speaking truth doesn't end careers, it transforms them.